On June 22, 2025, a United States B-2 Spirit pilot released a sequence of heavy bunker busters over Iran's Zagros mountains. The impact was so massive that seismographs in Tehran registered it as a localized earthquake. But this wasn't a natural disaster, and contrary to the Iran news flooding your feeds right now, this wasn't the start of World War III with Iran. You're being fed a narrative that Washington is gearing up for a full-scale invasion of Iran, a repeat of Iraq in 2003, but with higher stakes. You see carrier strike groups moving into position near Iranian waters, and the headlines scream US attacks Iran or US to attack Iran, and you assume the hammer is about to drop on Iran. But if you are betting on an invasion of Iran, you are misreading the battlefield. The price you pay at the pump next month and the safety of your 401k doesn't depend on a new war with Iran. It depends on understanding why the war has been replaced by something far colder. The United States is not preparing to strike Iran. It is preparing to watch Iran dissolve. To understand why Trump won't strike Iran yet, and why the White House is holding fire, we have to look at the receipts from that June strike. For 2 decades, Iran's grand strategy relied on a single concept: the zone of immunity. The belief was simple: if you bury your nuclear program deep enough under the granite of the Zagros Mountains, you are untouchable. It was Iran's physics-based guarantee of survival. On June 26th, that guarantee was voided. Defense analysis reveals the pilots executed a double-tap stacking maneuver. The first bomb didn't destroy the target. It acted as a drill bit, punching a pilot hole through the rock. The second munition followed the exact trajectory of the first, passing through the crater to detonate deep inside Iran's sanctuary. The shockwaves didn't just liquefy the delicate machinery inside, they shattered the psychology of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Their bunker mentality, the idea that they could hide in the mountains and outlast American air power, was proven false. They don't have a fortress anymore. They have a tomb. If you want the full story on what mainstream media won't tell you, subscribe to SRC Declassified. Striking Iran again now is unnecessary. The Trump administration knows that the most efficient weapon against the Iranian regime isn't a missile, it is their own paranoia. As of January 2026, Iranian airspace is effectively closed. You've seen the rising searches. Iran closes airspace, Iran airspace closed, and the regime claims this is a military precaution. This is a lie. This is the suicide vest protocol. Following the June strikes on Iran, the supreme leader faced a catastrophic problem: gold flight. Iran's generals and economic elites realized they weren't safe, so they started liquidating assets to flee to Malaysia, Venezuela, or Moscow. The Iran airspace closure isn't a shield against incoming missiles. It is a cage for outgoing cash. The new travel rules inside Iran create a brutal trap. To leave the country, an Iranian official must file a flight plan. But under the new loyalty metrics, the mere act of requesting travel identifies you as a flight risk. It is a bureaucratic tripwire in Iran. You file the paper, you go on the arrest list. Meanwhile, Iran protests are intensifying. Iran executions and Iran public executions are spiking. The regime is purging its own ranks. An Iran execution today isn't about justice, it's about terror. Iran executes spies, dissidents, and anyone who might challenge the collapsing order. The US is letting this play out. Why interrupt your enemy when Iran is purging its own command structure? But there's a third volatile reason why the US won't commit to a ground war with Iran. It is the Somalification of the Persian Gulf. With central funding cut off by sanctions, the paychecks for the Iranian Navy have stopped clearing. And when Iran's Navy stops getting paid, it doesn't go home. It goes into business for itself. We are looking at the oil vacuum. We aren't dealing with fishermen holding rusty AK-47s. We are looking at trained Iranian naval officers with heavy anti-ship missiles, operating as independent pirates. Their business model is simple: extortion. If the US destroys the central government in Tehran today, the chain of command in Iran breaks completely. The Gulf becomes an anarchic free-fire zone. Insurance premiums on oil tankers would skyrocket, potentially pushing crude oil to $150 a barrel. Trump and the US administration cannot afford an oil shock that wrecks the American economy. This is why you're not seeing bomb Iran, the old McCain song that's trending again. This is why the Iran war everyone's predicting isn't happening the way you think. So the strategy shifts. The goal is to keep Iran's central government just intact enough to prevent maritime anarchy, but weak enough to ensure Iran cannot project power beyond its borders. This brings us to the endgame. Intelligence suggests the activation of the Moscow contingency. The top 1% of Iran's regime knows The Hague is waiting for them if they fall to a coup, and the streets of Tehran are waiting for them if they fall to their own people. Their only exit is Russia. You're seeing the Iran assassination threats trending. Iran assassination. Iran threatens Trump. Iran threat. Because the regime is desperate. Iran threatens the US not from strength, but from panic. These aren't the moves of a confident power. These are the last gasps of a dying empire. The latest Iran news shows a regime eating itself alive. Iran's foreign minister is trying to project stability, but behind closed doors, it's chaos. Iran today is not the Iran of 2015. It's a hollowed-out shell. The United States won't strike Iran because you don't shell a building that is already imploding. The collapse strategy is an exercise in strategic patience. The June secret broke Iran's shield. The suicide vest is breaking Iran's unity, and the oil vacuum is breaking Iran's bank account. When Israel and Iran were on the brink last year, everyone expected escalation. Instead, Trump chose something more devastating: silence. So, when you see the latest Iran news or live Iran updates screaming about imminent war, when Iran International or Tusi TV is covering Iran protests and unrest, look at the incentives. The most devastating weapon currently deployed against Tehran is not a bomb. It is the silence of an adversary waiting for gravity to do his work. Iran today is not preparing for war, it is preparing for collapse. And the Trump administration isn't going to interrupt it. The war with Iran isn't coming, the implosion already started.